J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you are tuned into us right now, whichever way works best for you, that's the right place for you to be as we continue our mission to have a live local talk radio here in the borderland, talking about the issues that are important to us and really getting into those discussions, because no one else is ever going to talk about the things and the way they affect us here like we are, the people who are affected by those things. Anyway, point is, we're in for it, and we are in for the discussion and want to hear from you, as we will at lower points during the show. Of course, you can chime in over on the social media. Some people gathering there already to appreciate the likes and reacts so far. You can also add your comments throughout the show, but of course, we got those phone lines that will open a little bit later in the program, as we usually do. Now, this Monday is a feels like the calm before the storm day. I mean, the storm's already here. We already got the stuff going on in the elections. Actually, someone not too far from our station out in like the median of the road holding up this is just what I saw, a Beto sign. So take that as you will. But it feels like, even as we're one day away from election day, I guess usually I feel like it's like a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a deep breath, early voting over, and then on to election day. Doesn't really feel like that today. I feel like it's just going full roar, full blast, and I'm hearing more than ever on all the very many ways. We have Austin Redfern over on the social media, Facebook. Good afternoon to you as well. So, yeah, if you were at all confused or wondering what one of the topics is today, elections, yeah, we're definitely talking about that. What the numbers show, what some of the polling indicates, again, for what it's worth, but also just where do we actually stand? And John Brazelton saying, okay, referring to blood in red and therefore political affiliation in the same way. I'm assuming you're saying the bloodbath begins tomorrow. The red wave may even flow into El Paso. Again, I just caution anytime someone says, oh, I just am hoping so hard it has to. Politics doesn't care much about your feelings. It cares more about what you've actually done. So you can hope and wish, as we also have Glenn Stewart. Good afternoon to you as well, and to wishing it to everyone else in the audience there as well. Appreciate it. You can hope and wish as much as you want to in politics, but unless you've been out there doing it, either stumping as a candidate, working in someone's campaign, doing the block walking, doing the phone calling, doing the door knocking, that's where the rubber hits the road. So that's why I further say the very least you can do, if you feel passionately in any direction about this election, is to make sure that, again, bare minimum voting. And honestly, I'll take bare minimum from a lot of people these days, and we're getting closer to it here. But before I get into the numbers, I do want to mention that we are going to have one non-explicitly election-related thing on today. Was able to catch up with local trucking concern, Munoz Trucking, getting some of their perspective on, well, some of those logistical concerns, situations, etc., that we've been talking about, dealing with, including questions about the diesel supply, about what is going on with the demand and supply in general for goods and the services that, of course, rely upon them. So we'll be getting into that today, as well as along with some other important situations going on around the borderland. So don't worry, and how to not be a hole at the polls here, at least one example, and how you should not consider that. Anyway, just some of the topics we will be getting into here today. So I had made I wouldn't call it exactly a call, but a impassioned hope myself here, because this is one of those ways that now I'm definitely trying to do something, mention people, but sometimes I wonder how much it's preaching to the choir about going out to vote. If anyone has listened to the show for a minute, I would be damn surprised if one of the things you haven't heard me say is go vote. Because that's my most well-worn soapbox here. And so in the hopes that, again, maybe not I'm moving the needle, but that the needle was being moved at all, was hoping for for at least 100,000, so 6 digits, people to actually head out to the polls. We beat the 10% bare minimum, like, if we don't hit this, what are we even doing kind of expectation we had before. So by the end of early voting, with the total daily totals, we hit just shy of six figures of that roughly, I mean, that would be just under 20% itself. About exactly 96,667 actually heading out to the polls, which is just so close. And yet 20% still beats the hell out of 3%. That, yes, has happened with other recent elections. The fact that we have so many elections, I can say other recent besides the actual like presidential, or even the previous midterm, is probably part of the problem. Voter fatigue is a very real thing, but that's getting a bit in the weeds. Point is that if you also do include the mail-in ballots that were returned, which were the vast minority of ballots that were being counted during this process, we did hit just over six figures, which, okay, good start. I'm hoping that means we will be able to get to, again, usually it has been we roughly double on election day. I don't know if it's reasonable to expect that 100,000 people will be able to go out to the polls or successfully do so on election day, which is, of course, in case you've been under a particularly large and soundproof rock, tomorrow, that we will going to get there. And yeah, RJ saying that we hit six figures, 20% if there are 506,000 or so registered voters. In fact, that's just about it. To be exact, 696 registered voters here in El Paso, 506,696 registered voters. So we're on track. So roughly 20% for El Paso County, that is, and hoping we can keep that going again through election day. This is not to say that I'm going to be out there forcing y'all to. If I could, I would. But please, flash and plea, make your plan to vote. El Paso Matters has an interesting, article about what you need to know, some of their voter guides and those kind of things, and just kind of breaking it down for you, making it very simple with their, usefully enough titled, Make a Plan to Vote in El Paso's Election. Something I've been, again, saying for a minute, and are just saying, yeah, there is game day. Falcon Menace saying we suck. Again, it's all about perspective. Yes, if this was a grade, we'd be kicked back into kindergarten at this point from whatever grade we were in. But I will take progress, and this is the damn sight better than 3.5%. Again, I should just have that tattooed on my forehead at this point for how much that both irks me and how I am never going to forget about it. We set the bar so low and then we still limbo under it, but we're doing better, and we still have all of Tuesday to vote. So if you're all thinking like, well, it's too bad, and of course the constant conversation, Maria Coleman saying it's not too late, you still have all day Tuesday to vote. You absolutely do, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And if you're in line when the polls close at 7 p.m., stay in that line. You can still cast your ballot as long as you're in line before 7. But John Browson bringing up that it's better ignorant and uninformed voters don't vote. Okay, I refuse to accept the idea that 80% of people here, or even just registered voters in El Paso, are completely ignorant and uninformed. I flat out refuse to accept that. Maybe unactivated, maybe not totally aware of the impact here, but I refuse to accept the idea that 80%, that the vast majority of people here in El Paso, again, even just registered voters, are just sleepwalking that much through life. I refuse to believe that. So there's something else going on there besides maybe people not getting why they should care. There's a disconnect, clearly, as we also have Calvin Williams joining us. Calvin Williams, good afternoon to you, as well as John Hertz. Point is that I just want people to go to the polls. Frankly, yes, ideally, the most informed, the best plan, knowing what all the issues are, which is part of the reason we brought you the coverage we have, but I'll also heartily encourage everyone else to go and look at the other coverage. Look at any of the El Paso media with El Paso in the name. El Paso Matters, El Paso Inc., there's at least one other, El Paso Times, or make sure you're doing that. And Robert Haynes saying, I'm an admitted political junkie, so I'm super excited for tomorrow. I know that we're not allowed to use this phrase in other advertising circumstances, but I'm going to call this the Super Bowl of politics, at least for this couple of years here. The Super Bowl is, of course, every 4 years. But yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm excited. I just want us to Oh, man, I'd be so happy if we could hit 50%. I'm not going to hold my breath on that. And frankly, 40% would be a damn sight better. We do lag behind Texas on some of this here. The rest of Texas, looking at about a 30% voter turnout so far, according to the Texas Secretary of State. So we could be better, but I will accept progress and more people going out to the vote. So again, make your plan to vote if you haven't already, or if you have, again, thank you for that. And for everyone who has voted and has already done so, that's for you. Congratulations on the bell. But just make sure that you're also telling people. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't keep your vote. I mean, you can see what you voted for secret, but don't keep the fact that you voted a secret. Let everyone know and say it proudly. I mean, there's a reason that they got that sticker, and I've realized I got a little bit screwed out of the nice local I voted sticker, but I'll be wearing that tomorrow as a proud voter, and I want you all to be proud of it as well there. And of course, Ed Clore bringing up one definite thing that we are going to be doing that election night coverage going from 7 to 9 p.m. tomorrow. We are going to be bringing you that live local election night coverage. I mean, a lot of the races we'll be focusing on, particularly right as polls close at 7 o'clock. We'll get some initial results starting to come out, the early voting totals. But then we will also be, initially at least, focusing on some of the national races, the balance of power in Congress, those kind of things, the gubernatorial elections for our areas, even though, well, Texas primarily, because that's when also New Mexico will start coming in. Flaco Jimenez saying he voted. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Yeah, you get the bell as well. And Ion Graham giving a very nice, concise list saying, be ready when you go to vote. Know who your candidates are. Don't get on your cell phone and bring up the internet. You can't do that more accurately, which is true. Keep your phone in your pocket. You can have a list of candidates on your cell or on a paper. You can't ask a poll worker about the candidates. We can't give you info. Go prepared and be ready. Go early. So, okay, you can have your cell phone like with your list, but frankly, print it out or just know it. You can go to epcountyvotes.com for anyone in our Paso County area and look at the sample ballot, even input your address and know exactly what will be on yours. And so Calvin Williams asking 4 to 6 and then 6 to 9. Sorry, I said 7 to 9 because we got to have a little bit of a break there. So yeah, we'll be doing the regular show 4 to 6. This will serve as our call-in show for the week. So Talk About It Tuesday is the best I've been able to come up with so far, as opposed to the free-for-all Friday. And then, yes, we will be on 7 to 9 live with you. I'll be joined by a couple of extra local experts in their own rights in the studio, including a UTEP professor of political science, Todd Curry, and El Paso Inc. editor, Robbie Gray, to help us focus on all of these and a lot of impassioned pleas for how to vote, including John Hurt saying Democrats identify as trees. You think they are informed? I think you might be conflating what I've said previously about the Ficus project, which I'm not sure actually exists anymore, which essentially the idea was for any of these unchallenged seats to put up a ficus on the ballot literally in order to kind of make the point that you should register to vote here. So I'm not saying anyone identifies as a ficus, though. I guess stranger things has happened. But yes, 4 to 6 and then 7 to 9. We're going to be live with you tomorrow. 4 to 6, the regular show, the call-in show for this week, because we are, through a strange twist of fate, actually going to be out of the studio the remainder of the week after Tuesday. Definitely, we got Election Day on lockdown for you. Do not worry. And Ted Kors as well, saying that he also voted here. We got more bells to give out here. And tell you what, I got to take that first break of this hour right now. Went on a little bit longer than we usually do. I'm excited. It's the start of the week. It's the day before Election Day. It's the calm before the storm. But we're bringing the ruckus here on the show for you today. So got to take that first break of this hour right now. Coming back, one thing we'll talk about, not directly election related, though take the implications if you want to, with a local perspective, a locally based trucking company on what is going on, both on the roads, with the supply, with the necessary things to keep things moving, all that and more coming up after this first break of the hour. You are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Getting back to more of those comments. Phone lines open a little bit later as we do, but in any case, stay tuned in and locked in to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso police responding to a crash I-10 eastbound at the Schuster Avenue exit. A stalled semi is blocking the left shoulder on Loop 375 eastbound in the East Valley at Spur 601. Police are on the scene of an accident in Yandell, west of Gateway South, and slow traffic for the whole stretch of Montana Avenue between the 54 Gateway and Global Reach with 10-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
As you crunch the numbers trying to get the most out of your dollar, we'll throw in a $1,000 inflation bonus. Much better. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen to win $1,000 every hour, weekdays from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. It's the 1,000 inflation bonus on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is sponsored by The Truth with Lisa Booth's podcast.
She's bold and she's fearless, and she's running for governor of Arizona. Carrie Lake joins me on The Truth with Lisa Booth. And listen to The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday, but you can listen throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get ready for the smartest bundle in streaming. 6 streaming services for the intellectually curious, featuring Curiosity Stream with the best collection of documentary films and TV shows, Psalm TV, and great stories from the world of wine, Tastemade for the fun side of food and travel, Topic with the best thrillers and crime stories, and so much more. From nature to history, technology to food, mystery to adventure. Get 6 streaming services for one low price at less than $6 a month. It's the best deal in streaming. Learn more and sign up now at smartbundle.com.
When it comes to our judges, experience and qualifications matter. Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals graduated in the top 10% of his law school class. He practiced law for 29 years before coming to the Court of Appeals, where he has been for the last 8 years. The only candidate in this race who is board certified in civil appellate law. A principled conservative who fairly applies the law as written. We need to keep Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals.
Political ad paid for by Justice Jeff Alley in accordance with the voluntary limits of the Judicial Campaign Fairness Act.
3D printing, cyber defense, robotics, automation. This is advanced manufacturing, and it's El Paso's next frontier. One that our region has been building for years, and it's shaping us to be the hub for what the future holds, bringing a new era of progressive education, future-forward jobs, and higher wages. The next chapter starts now. Visit elpasotexas.gov/next frontier to see how our story unfolds.
At EasyCater, food for work is our thing. Maybe that's why we get orders from 93% of Fortune 500 companies. So what's up with the other 7%?
Food is late again.
You should have ordered through EasyCater. Professionally delivered right on time.
EasyCater, huh? Have a pen?
No, I don't have a pen. Does anyone have a pen?
Nah, I'll remember.
Why don't all companies order through EasyCater? Who knows? Order 24/7 from over 95,000 restaurants on EasyCater.com. EasyCater, food for work. That's our thing.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us overall over the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, as we have Ida Beza Gardner, hello and wave to you as well, Calvin Williams, Marky Mandingo, John Brazelton, who else we got here? Ted Kors, Eric McNabb, Flaco Jimenez, Ion Graham, Ed Glore, John Hertz, Robert Haynes, dropping those likes and reacts. Let's just do it that way here, because otherwise I start losing track and getting lost in the comments. We get a lot of them. We try to pop up the most relevant ones at any given moment, though the conversation often takes on its own tone and tenor. Waving for Calvin Williams as well. Do appreciate it. For those dropping those likes and reacts, of course, we do have Flaco Jimenez, Calvin Williams, Angel Rueda, Ida Beza Gardner, Ion Graham, Alex Campos, Robert Haynes, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Richard Janessi. Do appreciate it. RJ on the I voted sticker saying, I missed the mountain sticker too. Must be a supply chain breakdown on software that prints mountains, and the blue finger covers that for 12-year-old girls. No comment there, but if you want to use it, hey, this is just what they gave me in the baggie. All right, I make no claim to reasoning behind it. I've seen some people have the local I voted sticker here, so maybe I'm just a little bit salty that apparently I didn't go to one of the voting locations that had it. But that's not the reason I vote. It's just, a fringe benefit of actually going out and casting your vote. But in any case, speaking of supply chains, a lot of questions have come up there in recent days, weeks, years, really, if you think about it, about what is going on within. We've had a couple of interviews in the past related to, okay, what are some of the situations from some national companies? And, well, we have some that are, working nationally, but locally based. Was able to catch up with Charlie Munoz with over at Munoz Trucking earlier today, and got a chance to pick his brain a little bit because, and Jack Wally bringing up a point I was going to bring up next segment, but I need to bring up here. Saying a lunar eclipse tomorrow, making for a blood red moon, a sign. All I'm saying is don't pick up any strange plants that you find during the lunar eclipse is the best I can say. But in any case, back on the supply chain issues here. Yes, that was a little Shop of Horrors reference. In any case, was able to catch up with, again, Charlie over at Munoz Trucking, pick his brain a little bit and find out what are their perspective on some of the things that, well, we've been talking about in part. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Charlie Munoz, freight manager with Munoz Trucking. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us about this, because the situation, logistics in general, have been a major conversation that we've been having, but also been going on pretty much across the country and even around the world, frankly. And so wanted to get a little bit more perspective. We've previously talked with some, let's call them nationally or otherwise based trucking concerns, but you all, how do you go about describing the scope of operations that you all have at Munoz Trucking?
Well, currently, like I said, we do service all 48 states. We provide dry freight and refrigerated transportation. We do full truckload and LTL services as well. And we've been in operations for over 27 years.
And okay, how do you describe the volume, I guess would be another way to ask it here, or how many trucks do you all have that kind of a size of the operation? How do you describe that?
Okay, so currently we do have a fleet of 155 tractors, and we have approximately 325 trailers. As far as our volumes, of course, yeah, currently with the market the way it is, it has decreased quite a bit. I would say right now it's pretty rough right now. It's probably the worst it's been since COVID first started, actually. But luckily here, we're pretty fortunate with our contracts and lanes that it hasn't affected us too much. We've been able to keep our volume pretty consistent and keep our drivers running.
That is a very important question that I want to make sure we get to here, among the other things we're going to try to squeeze in with our mentions here today. So when you say about with the market here and the volumes that you're looking at, and it being almost the worst since the start of COVID here, what kind of, I mean, either for yourselves or what you're experiencing with the industry as a whole, or, other, colleagues and contacts that you all have, kind of what is the state of it right now?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty rough. Like I said, right now, I guess typically, I mean, not typically, but right now with the market, as far as inflation, being at like a 40-year high right now, it's probably affecting us the most. The cost of goods is probably easily doubled within the last couple of years. So that's been affecting us pretty significantly. But yeah, like I said,
is it just on the cost side, so it's costing more to do the same kind of volumes, or are you seeing the volumes changing as well, like the demand shifting or lessening in some cases?
Yeah, it's actually both. So for us, as far as the costs, the costs are through the roof. They're probably the highest they've been since we've been in the industry. Operating costs, as far as for us, have been significantly increased. The fuel prices have gone through the roof, and then of course on the cost of goods. There's been quite a decrease in the demand. The supply seems to still be there, but the demand has gone down significantly.
And we mentioned a couple of the kind of things that you all carry, dry freight and things like that. When you're talking about that demand for the kind of goods, what category are you seeing that across?
Actually, I would say it's pretty. It's kind of across all the categories. To be honest, it's like I said, we do ship just about any kind of dry freight there is, whether it's lumber, food products, metal, all kinds of materials, a lot of automotive products. And in general, they've gone down pretty, like I said, pretty drastically.
Okay, and I mean, you all are delivering and fulfilling, large orders here, so not exactly something that someone's going to have showing up at their house, so to speak here. So is there a sense that you can kind of get on if this is still a lack of supply, a lack of availability of some of those things? I mean, we've talked previously about, housing issues, supply for those kind of things, or is this people aren't wanting that kind of thing? So the reason I ask that is that there's been some talk about, particularly for this season, as we're going into the end of the year holiday shopping season, that even with there being general concerns about the economy, there's thoughts that consumer demand will still keep up. So that's why I'm wondering, what does it seem to be driven the trends that you're seeing on your end? What's your perspective on kind of what's causing it?
Okay, yeah, yes, sir. In my opinion, honestly, I would say it's a lack of demand. I would say that since prices have increased, the costs have increased so significantly, I think it's people are ordering less products and or customers in general are just taking the minimum, to fill the supplies. But yeah, I would say that's what it is. It's absolutely a decrease in demand versus supply, rather.
Interesting. Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Charlie Munoz, freight manager with Munoz Trucking. You want to find out anything more about them, their operations, and kind of the scope they're able to comment on here, MunozTruckingInc.com. That's MUNOZ Trucking, INC.com. So, okay, being El Paso based, you all are very much, but still going across the entire continental U.S. You all have a lot of varied circumstances you're looking at here. I mean, there's been a lot of specific things that have affected us here in this region, but it's kind of been said that, yeah, there was at least in aggregate, a dip in demand and even supply right at the start of the pandemic. But some of the regional analysis that we had been following here had shown that kind of had rebounded, and we had even by 2021 started to surpass the amounts that were being seen, at least transited through the ports of entry, that kind of thing, that kind of a measure by even, the end of last year. So what has it been like regionally, would you say, that you're looking at what's being demanded, originating again from here to even go to whatever points beyond?
Okay, yes, sir. Yeah, so I would say like right after COVID, we did rebound up fairly well. The market did increase significantly. And just recently, I would say even maybe by the second quarter of this year, that's when we started noticing the trends where it started going in a downward trend once again. And right now, I would say, in my honest opinion, I would say it's more stagnant than anything, not necessarily a decreasing market, but I would say very, very stagnant. Like I said, that's why I think it's a lot more of a decrease in demand, because whereas customers used to give us, big orders and we'd have shipments left and right of huge volumes. It seemed like not overnight, of course, but it seemed within the last quarter or two, those volumes just seemed to minimize. Customers started ordering just whatever they needed to get through their quarters.
Back on then the issue of costs and of the cost of doing business here. I mean, there's been a lot that's gone into it, a lot of changes. I mean, material supplies, those kind of things. But one thing that has absolutely been focused on has, of course, been fuel prices, specifically that of diesel, because while sure the average person may feel the pain at the pump whenever it comes to gasoline, diesel is what is really then kind of getting more baked into the extra costs of goods. While you're seeing, at least what's been talked about anyway, that stuff is getting more expensive because that's more than factored into the base level of production, as opposed to the individual going to get it in their own lives kind of thing. So when it comes to the diesel situation, just on the costs at this point here, or even the related things like diesel exhaust fluid, what are some of the situations you're encountering there?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So without question, the diesel would be one of our highest costs. Right now, I believe the national average is still over $5 a gallon, or at one point was more over than $5 per gallon. Right now, for us currently, it's about 0.75, I believe, per gallon per mile. So, which is, it doesn't sound like much, but you factor that into the amount of miles that we're running daily, and it's a significant cost. And at 75 miles, 75 cents per mile is easily almost double what it was this time last year. So that's that cost right there. Again, like I said, is a big significant factor, and it is affecting our industry tremendously.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that there. I mean, they're saying 0.75 per mile, the costs of that. And like, say, given, for example, 600 miles to Dallas, that would come out to roughly, $450, give or take there. So like you said, it adds up mile over mile, if I'm doing my math right there. So the cost is one thing. One other thing that has come up, of course, was concerns about the supply, the availability of it. Now, there was some talk of that happening regionally, but I mean, concerns have gotten and at least been brought up even on this program in other ways. What are you all seeing whenever it comes to the actual availability or the supply? There has been this talk of there being essentially a day amount left. I mean, that's kind of a supply in, supply out kind of situation of how much stock there is at the moment. So what are some of the situations you are seeing whenever it comes to even just the supply and the amount available?
Okay, yeah. So I have heard quite a bit about that here recently. Something about like a 25-day, not a short, well, yeah, shortage of fuel in essence. But for us, right, as of right now, like I said, we have not been affected as far as the availability of fuel. Thank God, we've been very fortunate, and as far as we can see, like I said, we fuel through Loves, and they have not notified us of any kind of shortage, and we have not been affected in that aspect.
Okay, and has that been happening locally, or is this something that you're seeing across all of your regions as well of where y'all operate?
Yeah, it's like I said, that'll be a general. In general, we haven't really it hasn't affected us yet. We have heard the rumors, of course. We try to stay up to date with, of course, all the news and everything going on in the U.S. But like I said, as of right now, currently, we have not been affected by that.
Okay, fair enough. Good to know that information of what we're looking at locally and nationally from your perspective here. So, with the majority of your operations based here in El Paso, beyond even the current difficulties and situations going on here, a couple of kind of forward-looking questions for you. Essentially, if there are to become issues with the diesel supply, maybe regionally or maybe overall, what kind of impact would that have on y'all's operations? What kind of steps might you even have to take at that point?
Oh, see, so that'd be very difficult to determine because that would affect us significantly. Like I said, us being we have 155 units, so you got to imagine the amount of fuel that we're fueling daily. But it's upwards in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per week. So if there was any kind of shortages or what have you, then of course, yeah, that would affect our operation significantly. Depending on how severe it is, we really wouldn't be able to tell you until we knew the extent of it.
Yeah, I mean, we start getting into cloudy crystal ball kind of type here, but there's been a lot of speculation of what that would look like. I mean, people even posting about what it'll look like on day 25 of that, 25-day countdown that you mentioned here. Not entirely an accurate way to describe it here, but if it were to come to pass that, again, even regionally, supplies of fuel like that, maybe not even just for your operation, but what kind of situations would you expect if for the trucking industry in general, that were to come to pass, again, even regionally, much less nationally?
Oh, I mean, yeah, that'd be catastrophic, but we'd have to do some kind of like fuel rationing or something. And I don't know how they would be able to determine that or who gets what or the amounts, but that would be like I said, a crippling factor for our industry.
Taking it back locally and taking it back more to less speculation and more looking at moving forward factors. Of course, like we mentioned, some of the ports of entry, the volumes being seen through there are a major factor for trade, the transit of goods, all of like the economy of our area. Even there, it's often been estimated that somewhere around a quarter of all jobs in El Paso are either directly related to or direct result of those other jobs involved with the trade in our area. So there's been talk about more ports of entry being opened up and more moving around that I've seen over the years, such as the development of the Santa Teresa area, that Santa Teresa port of entry. There's talk about doing more to improve on some of the outskirts, including such as maybe towards Sunland Park or even down such as like the Tornillo port of entry, but other ones similar to that. So in terms of local development and particularly international trade and things like that, what would opening up another port of entry or two do for you all in kind of the regional trade and transit industry like that you're all involved in?
Oh, well, that would absolutely benefit us, of course. As far as just traffic and transit alone, if they opened another port of entry, then we would be able to help our customers, and move much more freight for them. Especially, we have our own sister company that does the border crossings. So another port of entry would absolutely help us. It would increase our volumes, essentially, help us, and it'd be a lot easier as far as to help us be more efficient, in essence.
There have also been some other programs that not exactly opening a new port of entry, but say public-private partnerships where, among other things, the city of El Paso has, for example, actually paid, and local companies have paid into the fund to allow for the paying of, say, more agents actually at the border checkpoints and things like that. Have you found programs like that to essentially increase capacity at the existing ports of entry to be useful, or are there other things that you would also like to see done?
You know what? We have not actually looked into anything of that sort. That actually might be something that we should probably take advantage of, and I'll have to get with some people here to see if we can move forward on a process like that.
All right, fair enough here. Anything else that you'd like people to know? I mean, trucking is undeniably a very important thing for the way the economy, goods, services, and the services that use the goods, of course, move and work in our country at this point in time. Anything else that you'd like people to know about the current situations or what it is to be trucking at this point in time?
Not too much, sir. I mean, like I would say is just, just keep on ordering stuff. Transportation is part of the backbone of this, of our economy. And a lot of people don't really take that into consideration, but, yeah, we're here 24/7, 365, and that's what we do.
All right. Again, guest right now has been Charlie Munoz, freight manager for Munoz Trucking. Again, any more details, information about them, it's a locally based company, MunozTruckingInc.com. That's MUNOZ Trucking INC.com. So, Charlie, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us and detail some of the situations, some of the realities of what we've been talking about and people have been discussing here today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Again, thanks to Charlie Munoz there with Munoz Trucking. Interesting to get the perspective on what they are, what they aren't seeing, and, well, what's some of the local situations and potential future developments. It's not all about just being reactionary, but also what might be coming up here. So super overdue for that next break right now. We're going a little bit long in the tooth in a lot of ways, but we've got a lot to talk about today, including, a hell of a lot more on elections, including the last gas gubernatorial poll, what that says and what it is and what it means as we get inching closer within 24 hours of election day here. Heck, coming up on 12 hours after that. So, concession species act. More on the comments, more on the phone lines, opening them up a little bit later, all that and more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso police are looking for the person responsible for shooting at a family in what police are describing as a road rage incident in West El Paso. It happened Saturday at the intersection of Mesa and Crossroads. Police say an SUV occupied by the driver's wife and an infant were shot at by a man in a white sports car after the driver of the SUV made a U-turn and cut off the sports car. Bullets hit the SUV. None of the occupants were injured. 3 teenagers died after a crash in Chaparral, New Mexico. It happened Friday morning at the intersection of Angelina and Steve Drive. Officials say that a 2007 Toyota driven by a 16-year-old was going east on Steve Drive when the Toyota failed to stop at a posted stop sign and struck a 2019 Dodge pickup truck. The driver of the Toyota and 2 passengers, a 15-year-old female and an 18-year-old male, all died at the scene. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso Fire and police on the scene of an injury accident. Joe Battle northbound at Gateway West. Stop and go traffic, 15 minutes of it on the 54 southbound from Stan Roberts to Kenworthy. On North Desert Boulevard at Red, a stalled Hummer, it looks like by freeway cameras, is blocking the center lane and causing a backup. And Dyer northbound at McCombs, an injury accident. Try rushing or the loop to get around it. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We saw clouds moving in throughout the day, and it looks like we'll still have some clouds overnight to keep those temperatures just a little warmer, but the winds will remain light. Winds will be the big story for us this week as our next weather maker begins to make its presence as early as Wednesday. We will really feel it going into our Thursday with also a drop in temperatures. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Where can you get holiday ready and hosting the entire family ready? Lowe's, actually. Save on a Samsung kitchen suite. Was $5,146, now $3,016. Check back daily for deals during Black Friday month at Lowe's. Offer valid through 11/9. Exclusions apply. See store for details.
Politicians have led us down the wrong path. Record inflation and cost of living, unsafe border communities, a war on oil and gas jobs. Enough is enough. Catherine Parker will uphold our Texas values. A successful businesswoman and rancher, Catherine Parker will lower inflation and our cost of living. Catherine Parker will work to permanently lower your property taxes. Catherine Parker will stand up to the radicals who threaten our values and put our families in harm's way. Catherine Parker will secure our border communities and fully fund border security. Catherine Parker will stand with law enforcement and against those who want to defund our police, because our communities deserve to be safe. And Catherine Parker will defend the oil and gas jobs that power our communities. Truth, freedom, prosperity. Vote Catherine Parker for District 74 on November 8th. Political ad paid for by Catherine Parker Campaign.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
11 presidents, the Pope, and dozens of world leaders have shared their thoughts about matters of faith with one person, Billy Graham. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of talk about the elections, of course, here, and don't worry, we'll have the fan favorite election music coming up in the second hour of the program here once we start getting to some of those numbers and things, and the kind of a last gasp, both polling. I mean, there's a lot to get to there. About, again, some of the voting numbers that we're looking at, putting El Paso just under the six figures for local voter turnout for early voting. It gets over that once you include the mail-in ballots, of which are the vast majority, according to epcountyvotes.com, about 5,000 or so there versus the then 95,000 people who voted in person. So again, anyone who has been out there but and been doing the voting but wasn't able to chime in and let us know, that's for you. Thank you for voting. That is the voting bell. Every time the bell rings, a vote gets its wings. Okay, I'm stretching the analogy here, but you get the idea. That's our mild celebration for people actually participating in the whole civic process, because doing so is ever so slightly important here. A couple of questions coming up. Calvin Williams wanted to know some of the things that we will also be talking about tomorrow, asking somewhat tongue-in-cheek after the election who is going to give the concession speech for the 3 bonds. Probably some member of the city management. I don't know. I don't think it'll actually happen, but they'll be the ones having to deal with it. And again, it is interesting to note, according to that mailer that I got, the El Paso Community Progress Bond being sent out by, let me see here, the El Paso Progress Political Action Committee. They say that by state law, if any of the propositions fail, the city is not permitted to issue certificates of obligation for 3 years following the bond election. So it's an interesting added wrinkle to it. But he also asked, so I'm sure someone will be in that was going to be managing those projects will be sad. So maybe they essentially will. But a couple other questions he's asking as well is, are going to give out us the final dollar amount spent. That is a surprisingly complex question because, okay, think about it. If we were just talking about campaigns, you can start approaching that once you start delving through the data. So you might be able to get to that. But once you start including PACs, these mailers, because obviously the city can't issue that. It can't spend money on promoting its own voter issues here. Can't spend the voters' money to convince the voters kind of thing. But the PACs do, and they start getting into super PACs, special interest groups. Like, it gets complicated. There's a reason that campaign finance reform is not oh yeah, this is simple. Just make this one change and it'll all be better. It's complex as hell. So kind of. We might be able to mention it for a couple, particularly the city council races. City council races, we could definitely give you what candidates have spent, but honestly, that's going to be a whole lot of delving into data, open records requests, and maybe even like trying to knock on some doors. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to be able to totally give you those numbers tomorrow, but I'm sure it will be part of the discussion. There will be those kind of like estimates about this being how many millions, if actually probably more like billions, being spent during this election. And one other question is asking, and the number of people who voted, yes, so that we will be able to have, maybe not immediately as polls close, but as more of the precincts report throughout the night, we'll be able to give you that. Again, we are looking at roughly 20% so far, but coming out of this, we'll get a clearer idea. Still looking like it might be nowhere near the level of about 2018, in which was hitting statewide anyway, closer to like 50 more percent. What we got here locally, again, if we can hit 40%, I will be mildly ecstatic, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, Jack Wally also saying voted Friday and was number 4,979 in that location. Thank you very much for doing so. So that is for you as well. So appreciate you letting us know, and make sure to tell everyone you know to go and vote as well. Again, be proud of your vote. Be proud of the fact that you voted, and you are the one, and frankly, still the minority of people, even though the registered voters here in El Paso, making the choice and taking the time to actually go out and flip and vote. Anyway, and some other questions coming up here and ideas back and forth. I'll address this one here on the idea of the roads and such. Eric McNabb saying, you oppose money to go fix sidewalks and our roads, don't complain about them ever again then. I think that's kind of a false dichotomy, saying that you either love this item or you're opposed to infrastructure and roads and all that kind of things here, because there are legitimate questions, as we've been discussing with some of these city council candidates, among other things, about how this should be managed. So, I mean, let's just take this to its logical extreme then. If there was an item on there saying that we are going to spend $50,000 on scratch-off tickets, but also $1 will go towards roads, with someone saying, well, I'm not quite sure about the financial management behind that item there, saying, well, you're opposed to roads then, aren't you? Yeah, I'm going to say no there, and I think that's getting a little bit closer to essentially some of the people's concerns out there about this project, about financial management, about how it will be working on, and why essentially this hasn't been a part of city priorities already, given the local mandates for local government are, well, pretty succinct generally anyway. What people expect from it anyway: roads, public safety, basic services. And once we start getting beyond that, has to be the heck of a good justification for it. But tell you what, got to take that break right now. Coming back out of this break, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines, mostly get you a chance to get on the line, though I don't know if we're actually going to be able to get to any of the calls right now. If you want to start queuing up, now would be the time to do so by calling that number, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Fire and police on the scene of an injury accident. Joe Battle northbound at Gateway West. Stop and go traffic, 15 minutes of it on the 54 southbound from Stan Roberts to Kenworthy. On North Desert Boulevard at Red, a stalled Hummer, it looks like by freeway cameras, is blocking the center lane and causing a backup. And Dyer northbound at McCombs, an injury accident. Try rushing or the loop to get around it. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Where can you get holiday ready and hosting the entire family ready? Lowe's, actually. Save on a Samsung kitchen suite. Was $5,146, now $3,016. Check back daily for deals during Black Friday month at Lowe's. Offer valid through 11/9. Exclusions apply. See store for details.
It's important to live healthy and to be with the right healthcare team.
For us, that's WellMed.
WellMed doctors get to know us, and they help us to live healthy. They coordinate with specialists and the pharmacy so we get the care we deserve.
Because your health matters.
The Medicare annual enrollment period is October 15th to December 7th. Visit mydocmatters.com or call 888-824-9568. Calling this number will connect you to the brokerage, a licensed insurance agency that can answer your Medicare questions and help you choose a plan. We accept original Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans.
Integrity, proven experience, hard work, passion. These are the qualities we get by keeping Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals. He graduated in the top 10% of his law school class, practiced law 29 years in El Paso before coming to the 8th Court, where he has been for the last 8 years. The only candidate in this race who is board certified in civil appellate law, a principled conservative who thoroughly applies the law as written. We need to keep Justice Jeff Alley.
Political ad paid for by Justice Jeff Alley, in accordance with the voluntary limits of the Judicial Campaign Fairness Act.
New on Curiosity Stream. Get ready for the best of the best with our 100 Days of Curiosity, featuring fan favorite titles like Light on Earth with Sir David Attenborough.
Join me on a journey like no other.
Stephen Hawking's favorite places.
It's a crazy world out there.
The History of Home with Nick Offerman.
Not my home, just homes. Other people's homes.
And many more. Don't miss 100 Days of Curiosity, happening right now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
Are algorithms controlling our life? Find out this week on Red Pilled America. You can find Red Pilled America on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America, a storytelling show.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, basically just checking in this segment as we got to end up hitting the top of the hour here. Again, that phone line is now open. Is some availability if you want to try to squeeze on there. Otherwise, just make sure you got the number down so that if you can't get on later, you know what to dial. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And as I say that, it may have pulled up here. So I guess keep it on mind. Keep it in mind if you want to chime in there. A lot of comments coming in there as well, including Eric McNabb, Maria Coleman, with a good one saying, never doubt that your vote matters. There are many races across the country decided by a few thousand votes. You can have an impact. Heck, locally, there have been races decided by a couple dozen votes. That's why I say take all of your friends, make a bus tour out of it, however you want to do it. Where you're like picking people up, going to the polling place, and then going to a bar. The idea has come up before of free pint if you're of age and have a I voted sticker on you. Just saying. Anyway, got to go ahead and take that next break right now. Getting into more of the comments and the phone calls after this break, so stay tuned. More here on Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police work on an injury accident northbound Joe Battle at Gateway West on Border Highway westbound to the 54 Gateway Patriot. A state trooper is blocking the center lane. Southbound on the 54 from McCombs down to Kenworthy, it's a 5-minute delay. Slow traffic for the stretch of Montana between the 54 Gateway and Global Reach, 8-minute delay. And an injury accident rushing just south of Sun Valley at Tropicana Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Joe Biden's inflation is crushing Americans. Higher costs for gasoline, painful prices at the grocery store. Just about everything costs us more. And just like Biden, Beto O'Rourke supports higher taxes that would crush Texans even more. What does Governor Abbott say?
In Texas, we are fighting back, cutting property taxes to help homeowners, producing more energy to lower gas prices. And we passed a constitutional amendment to ban an income tax in Texas.
This election, you have a choice. With Beto O'Rourke, it's higher taxes, higher prices, and an economy that's being crushed. With Greg Abbott, it's lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy that's booming.
If you're tired of getting crushed by Biden's inflation, join us and keep Texas strong.
Greg Abbott for governor.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News on the hour and the half. KTSM. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook.
The Department of Justice will deploy election monitors to dozens of states for Tuesday's midterm elections. Personnel from the DOJ's Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's offices will monitor polls in 64 jurisdictions in 24 states to ensure compliance with federal voting rights laws. That includes several locations in Arizona where there have been reports of voter intimidation at ballot drop boxes. Meantime, President Biden and his old boss are teaming up with a simple message for America.
Vote. Go to iwillvote.com to find out where and how.
On Twitter, former President Obama posted a video of he and Biden together ahead of tomorrow's election. It comes after the two held a weekend rally in Pennsylvania. Wall Street is closing higher the night before midterms. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 423 points to 32,827. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is speaking out for the first time since her husband was attacked in a home invasion. California Democrat Pelosi will talk to CNN's Anderson Cooper. Paul Pelosi suffered a fractured skull and serious injuries to his hands and arm after being attacked late last month at the couple's San Francisco home. Another U.S. citizen is dead after fighting in Ukraine. Lisa Taylor has more.
Timothy Griffin of New York State was fighting with Ukrainians on the Eastern Front when he was killed in action. That's according to a spokeswoman for the International Legion, a division made up of foreigners fighting Russian aggression in the country. No other details were provided about Griffin's death due to privacy concerns. He's at least the sixth American to be killed in Ukraine since the war began. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Oxytocin, the so-called love hormone, may one day help patients recover from heart attacks. It's well known that the drug fosters social connections and pleasurable feelings. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. New Jersey's governor is backing a slew of legislation to help combat rampant auto thefts. Natalie Migliori reports.
Governor Murphy says of the four measures, one would require judges to consider more serious consequences for repeat auto theft offenders, while another would invest in pretrial services to stop someone from committing additional crimes,
which I will sign into law as soon as they are passed.
The bills are working their way through the legislature with support from Senator Nick Scutari, who has one message for residents.
These cars come with locks. If you don't use them, they don't work. So take your key fobs with you and lock your doors.
In New Jersey, car thefts were down by 12% this October compared to the same time last year. I'm Natalie Migliori.
Pennsylvanians could send a Muslim to the U.S. Senate for the first time in the nation's history on Election Day. Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz is in a tight race with Democrat John Fetterman. The New York Times reports Oz identifies as a secular Muslim who raised his 4 children in his wife's Christian faith. It wasn't so funny for comedian Amy Schumer leading up to her appearance on Saturday Night Live. Lisa G. explains.
Schumer is revealing that while she was getting ready for her third time hosting SNL last week, her young son Gene was admitted to the emergency room with RSV. On Instagram, she posted that she got to be with him at the hospital all day on Thursday and that those at the show couldn't have been more supportive, thanking the crew, the cast, and those behind the scene. She added that Gene is now home and feeling better.
The Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show will move to the home of the U.S. Open next year. The event will be held at the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center in New York City on May 8th and 9th. The show was held at Madison Square Garden for decades before it was moved to an outdoor setting, the Lyndhurst Estate in Westchester County, the last couple of years due to the pandemic. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. WIN. That's WIN. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The Fed continues crashing markets, but Bitcoin is starting to decouple from the markets. What does this mean? I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
What if there was an app where you could listen to this radio station plus hundreds more from across the country? Or what if that app had every song from every artist that you love, along with the biggest podcasts in the world?
Impossible.
Well, we couldn't find an app with it all. So we made it. And then we made it completely free. The free iHeartRadio app is the future of audio, and it's available now in your app store. Listen to what you want, when you want, wherever you want to. Download the free iHeartRadio app for all the music, radio, and podcasts you love.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch here. I know every time we take a break, it feels like more time lost, but we're back into it and getting back to the phone lines and everything we do. And, of course, that music. Election season. We are on the cusp of the grand finale for now, anyway, as we also have Mondo Moncada over there and Robbie Flores, the Purchase Funeral Home event. Interesting. Glad y'all went out there. We had other commitments that we were having to do during our time during that day, needs, must, and all. But thank you for going out there. That's one of the other things going on. But, of course, elections and all the voting going on. So one thing I wanted to mention here, because there's been a lot of talk, at least from some campaigns, at least the literature I've been receiving, among other things, about votes, percentages, polling specifically. Very interesting. The phrase statistical tie keeps coming up, among other things. So there's one last poll that at least when it comes to the TAB, the Texas Association of Broadcasters, looking at from Claremont McKenna College's Rose Institute of State and Local Government, a multi-state gubernatorial poll going on, and it shows some interesting results for the governor's race, a potentially narrowing of the margins, and this is why, among other things, been hearing about that, again, phrase, statistical tie, because where it currently puts it as an Abbott at about 51% of the vote and O'Rourke about 44% of the vote, so that still has Abbott 4 points up, but, and this is where some of the rhetoric starts coming in, there's a margin of error plus or minus 4%. So that doesn't put it in there immediately, but there is also a noted about 4 or 5% undecided within there. And so that's why, and some of the campaign literature I've been seeing and getting puts it at the idea of a statistical tie, mostly being put forth as like a fundraising number in that way, because anything being close is definitely a reason for you to give more money to campaigns, at least the way they talk about it. But there's a whole lot more we'll get to there. So let's go ahead and dip into those phone lines again here. We do have lost a caller there, but okay, got more callers on the line here. Again, if you want to call in on the show, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. RJ saying, please, no runoff. I can make no guarantees there, but let's get back to those phone calls right now. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to remind the callers, tomorrow's the last day to make a difference, guys. Get out and vote. Take your friends. So far, I have 9 out there, so I'm challenging you guys to take 9 people or encourage 9 people to go vote.
Okay.
But I wanted to talk about debates and how important debates are. And everybody needs to know that both incumbents, Escobar and Samaniego, both refused to debate their opponent. And why could that be? Is it possible that it's indispensable for either of them to defend the policies that they voted for, which have caused our community heartache, insecurity, and financial hardship? Escobar has voted for the policies which have led to high inflation, higher fuel, higher grocery prices, higher utility bills, and lower paychecks. Our purchasing power is at an all-time low, while the cost of illegal immigration and an open border are at an all-time high. We need to vote for Irina Armendariz-Jackson. She'll fight for our community, for our children, for our babies, for border security. She will be in the majority, and she will make a difference and be more effective. And she's going to oppose bad policies that leave us in the condition that we're at. And I appreciate that interview with Munoz Trucking, because he just told us that Escobar and Biden are voting for the wrong things. He said in there that it's not so much of a supply problem, but rather a demand problem. And that he feels things are stagnant. And that makes sense. People don't have money. Our purchasing power is lower, like I just stated. And he said that it was significant that in the last 2 quarters, their cost per mile has doubled. Imagine that. And you know what? We feel it at the grocery store, because these guys are the last of the American cowboys, and that product goes from one end of the country to the other, and from Mexico to the U.S. and Canada to the U.S. and outward. And another thing I thought that was interesting when you asked him about the fuel shortage, the diesel shortage, he said it was going to be a catastrophic incident for the fuel industry. He said that there will be fuel rationing, and he does not know how they'll accomplish that, but it will be a critical factor for their industry. So we need to pay attention, those of you who have not yet voted, and think about this when you go to the ballot box, because those prices are going to be going up if that happens. And then let's talk about Samaniego. He also refused to debate Guadalupe Gened. His administration has increased our property taxes, and he doesn't seem to oppose certificate of obligations. He's wasted and continues to waste our hard-earned money on illegal immigration. You know, when you had your interview with him, Andrew, he revealed his narcissism, in my opinion, his pro-status quo stance. He believes that no one can lead us better than he does. Well, he's wrong. Guadalupe Gened, has a vision of change. These are a new set of eyes on old problems. She promises to review the budget with a fine-tooth comb, find ways, and make appropriate changes. She promises that she will ensure the county follows the state constitution. Has anybody heard Samaniego question why the Children's Hospital wants to compete with the private sector? I haven't heard Samaniego question that. Well, Lupe has. She wants to know, why is it that the Children's Hospital now wants to compete in the private sector? Well, she's focused, and she wants to know the answer. She's not afraid to ask the tough questions, and she questions certificates of obligation and their legality. Does the county really have the legal right to issue them? Does the county hospital have a legal right to compete in the private sector? And she is concerned about everything this county does that affects our pocketbook, that reduces our purchasing power. So we need to vote for Guadalupe Gened tomorrow. I'm asking El Paso to go in and make a difference. This is our time. Go vote. Be bold. And don't vote because you're a Democrat. You're going to vote Democrat, or you're Republican. You're going to vote for Republican. Vote for the best candidate that represents you, your family, your value, your pocketbook. That's where we're at right now. Because if we vote the same party in, we're going to get the same insanity we've had the last 2 years. So I'm hoping that everybody goes in, takes a friend, 2, 3, or 4, and vote for Irina Armendariz-Jackson and Guadalupe Gened, and vote for the other one, like Blanca Trout, who will be supportive on the county with Guadalupe. And there are many other fantastic candidates that I hope everybody votes for. And remember what Charlie said today. It's going to affect us. We have a shortage. Those prices, you think it's tough now? Wait till you go to the store when the fuel prices go further up. Wait till there's a shortage of everything. We'll pay for it, and we need to be smart when we go vote tomorrow. I hope you go vote and vote smart.
Absolutely. Definitely encourage people to go there. Again, if I have a well-worn soapbox, that's the most out of it. And again, vote whatever you want to see. Again, to quote the late, great Casey Kasem, in part anyway, he would say, if you think things could be better, make sure you're registered to vote right now. A little bit late for this election, so make sure you're for the next election, register to vote. And if you are registered to vote, go out and now prove to people at the very least, and that's part of I keep coming back to, prove to the people in power, the people that have been elected and such, that at the very least we're paying attention. And frankly, civic involvement, it's like a muscle. You got to exercise it. You, by doing more, you end up being able to wield and therefore use more power. And I think that's something that we need in this community, because these dismal rates, I don't think, have served us well here. So do appreciate the point of the call.
I think it's disrespectful to the community, to the citizens, not to have a debate. We need to hear both sides of an issue, and they are cheating us when they don't do that.
I mean, they are not strictly required to do so, but I do find it useful, because even though they may not be the best expression of their policies, but being able to defend it, say why in the face of any opposition that these are good policies, is instructive. And I'll admit it, as a political junkie, I thrive on them. So I encourage it. But for most of the candidates, a lot of the races you've mentioned there, we do have interviews up with the candidates, the nominees, the opponents in these cases. So anyone with any questions about what is on the ballot, what these candidates are for, and what they want to do if elected or continuing to be in office, of course, I'd recommend our YouTube most of all, EPCountyvotes.com for the actual names on the ballot. But for those in our coverage, of course, the Talk El Paso channel on YouTube. So Barbara, thank you very much for your point and your call.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Again, check it out there about what the candidates have been up about here. And part of our coverage plan is here for the days after Election Day. If there are any further, well, I mean, if the runoffs here, we're going to be re-airing some of those interviews here, as we are going to be out of the studio from Wednesday through Friday. But of course, we'll be back live after that, and we are definitely doing your live election night coverage. Let's get to one more call before we hear that next break. We do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
To paraphrase Ronald Reagan from a speech in 1980, are you better off economically now than you were 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the retrospective is a decent question to be asked.
Yes, sir. When you go to the grocery store, take a look. Were you paying $4 for an 18 carton count of eggs? Close to $4 a loaf for bread? Were you paying that 2 years ago?
Not exactly.
Okay. Also, just to bring up something that I heard yesterday, when Biden was campaigning for Governor Hochul of New York, he made an off-script remark. No more drilling on his watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has been a point that has come up here. And as much as there is also the conversation going on with the Saudis, among other things, I mean, anyone saying that, well, we can just quit fossil fuels tomorrow, it's not a reasonable person or position to be taken in my mind.
Yeah, that's correct. But I do remind people that there are over 6,500 products on the market right now that depend on fossil fuels.
Yep, that's true. I mean, petroleum products are not just those, at least the way we used to joke about when I was growing up, the candies that glue your teeth together, or the gummies anyway. There are a lot of things that require that, and to do anything else with it, such as, the biochemical or chemistry processes, there are some things that can be replaced from natural products like peanuts, soybeans, those kind of things. But it's not simple. It's not a one-to-one conversion. You don't just stop the factory using petroleum products one day and turn it on using, crops and such the next day.
Yes, well, even the fertilizer industry is suffering from this crisis right now. The fuel prices, because of the fuel prices the way they are. But I'd like to bring up one other point. Concerning Veronica Escobar, I'd like to remind the county retirees of El Paso that it was on her watch that the county did away with cost of living increase for the retirees. Take that into consideration. Also, it took a lot of campaigning, I would say, to put it mildly, just to get the 1% that we received last year and that we're going to receive in January. So take that into heart. Can your wallet afford any more 4 more years of this?
Fair enough. It's a good question everyone should ask, particularly when we're talking about very specific policy like you're mentioning there. So again, vote your interests, make sure you know what those are and how they're represented on the ballot, and then go and vote. So thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good evening. Take care.
Yeah, you as well there. And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break of the hour right now. Coming out of this break into more of the comments as well. We've popped some up here, but I will admit I'm neglecting them a little bit. So if you want to get on the line as well, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino, multiple vehicles blocking the right shoulder. A state trooper is blocking the center lane on Border Highway westbound at the 54 Gateway. Slow traffic on Liberty Expressway on the spur eastbound between the 54 Gateway and the Loop. It's a 5-minute delay. And watch for an injury accident Stanton at Franklin Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
As you crunch the numbers trying to get the most out of your dollar, we'll throw in a $1,000 inflation bonus. Much better. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen to win $1,000 every hour, weekdays from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. It's the 1,000 inflation bonus on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The Fed continues crashing markets, but Bitcoin is starting to decouple from the markets. What does this mean? I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get ready for the smartest bundle in streaming. 6 streaming services for the intellectually curious. Featuring Curiosity Stream with the best collection of documentary films and TV shows. Psalm TV and great stories from the world of wine. Tastemade for the fun side of food and travel. Topic with the best thrillers and crime stories. And so much more. From nature to history, technology to food, mystery to adventure. Get 6 streaming services for one low price. At less than $6 a month, it's the best deal in streaming. Learn more and sign up now at smartbundle.com.
When we have a dedicated public servant, we need to hold on to them. We have that servant in Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals. After practicing law for 29 years in El Paso, he gave up a law firm partnership to work at the court. Governor Abbott has twice appointed him to serve as a justice on the court. A principled conservative who fairly applies the law as written. We need to keep Justice Jeff Alley.
Political ad paid for by Justice Jeff Alley in accordance with the voluntary limits of the Judicial Campaign Fairness Act.
ABC Wednesday, the CMA Awards is live, and it kicks off with a must-see all-star tribute to Loretta Lynn. With performances by Carrie Underwood, Luke Bryan, Miranda Lambert, Morgan Wallen, and more. Plus, can't miss collaborations. Zach Brown Band with Jimmy Allen and Marcus King. Party featuring Lainey Wilson, Kelsey Ballerini with Kelly Clarkson and Carly Pierce.
It's going to be a great show.
Luke Bryan and Peyton Manning host the CMA Awards live Wednesday, 8/7 Central on ABC and stream next day on Hulu.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. A lot of places you can find us, be it on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Again, whatever works for you is the right place for you to be as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderlands. So, a couple of those points, of course, coming up and being talked about here with the election, ever so slightly biggest thing coming up here for that'll be our focus. That's primary focus for tomorrow. Just as a reminder, are going to be doing the regular show, call-in show. So I guess slightly irregular for us on Tuesday because we'll be out of the office the remaining part of the week. But then, of course, 7 to 9 p.m. after the show, we're going to be bringing you live and local election night coverage with a couple of more people. Couple more people joining me here in studio today, including Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., and Todd Curry, UTEP professor of political science. So stay tuned for that, of course. But let's go back to those phone lines now. I did mention I would get into a couple of comments here, including discourse and other things like that. Let me just say that passionately stating your case and what's important to you, as opposed to saying everyone else besides me is stupid, is a better way to go about it than not. And some points about, fossil fuels, the usefulness of them, among other things. And Eric von Holstein-Rathlow saying, I hate to do it, but thanks to the Biden inflation, I might have to raise my labor rates. Interesting night. Marky Mandingo saying, and I certainly hope this is facetious, saying, I have a shot of petroleum every morning and a shot of Roundup every night, still alive. Glad you're still alive. Hope the rest of it isn't actually happening that way. Kevin Williams saying, I think my ballot was compromised. I didn't get a chance to vote for democracy. I mean, by voting, you are participating in democracy, but I think I take your other point there. Anyway, let's get to more of the calls on the line here. The number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Jorge calling in from Brooklyn here. Jorge, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. I wanted to start by saying that tomorrow evening I'm certainly going to be listening to the analysis going to be coming out of El Paso because I feel I can trust the articulateness of the individuals involved in the process that is political. And I wanted to specifically call this evening to congratulate all those who have placed themselves on the ballot because it's difficult and arduous task to go out of one's way to make himself available to the election that perhaps might befall him or her. And it certainly is true that you are better for it, for having done what you believe is your civic duty in having placed yourself in that position.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting way that it works in a lot of places in El Paso. We've seen a few different examples of both people having to, say, the independent candidate for El Paso County Judge having to get a petition signed by a definable portion of the previous election's turnout, or those that have done the filing fees. But anyone who has put themselves out there in that way, I mean, is worthy of applause in their own right in order to do that, because it's, I mean, I put myself out here doing this kind of thing, and yet I still find a bit of trepidation on the idea of ever approaching a ballot, because that's a whole different animal.
Yes, it's true that the result of it is that the perspective that one gains from having done such a thing is greater and enhanced, and enables us in the community who choose not to, but who in fact follow the outcome of a situation such as this, to appreciate that effort that was made, because the expectation that the individual's viewpoint is enhanced is enlarged in our measure by it in turn, in our decisions that consequently are as important, perhaps in some ways, in as was made by the individual who chose to seek a political office.
Yeah, definitely there.
All right, then. Thank you, and good evening.
Sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
You're welcome.
All right, let's get to another call here on the line. Going down the list, we do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I hope that you had a part of this mega billion or whatever it is lottery. Did you win anything?
Again, I will still be hosting this show if I win anything near 6, 7, 8, kind of getting close to 9 figures there, I guess. But we'll have a lot more production going on with it. But no, sadly, that one was, I didn't get any of those chunks or any of the, I think there were maybe some, a couple of like the $1 million winners. None of that was mine, but I got to make sure I keep getting those tickets. I think we got a little bit of time before the next one comes up here.
Well, good luck to you. On a more serious note, actually, I'd like to find out if someone does win the 1.5 or 1.2, whatever it is, $1 billion, where do they put it? Because the FDIC only goes up to a certain limit, as you know, and a person can have a number of accounts. But, I mean, how many accounts can you have? Where you put your money if you do win, you know?
Yeah, so I think you start getting into essentially a contract with your bank. There's a phrase, not exactly on just total deposit amounts, but there was what's the phrase there? That if you owe the bank $10,000, that's your problem. If you owe the bank $10 million, that's the bank's problem. So I think what it comes down to is that if you got that much money being parked anywhere, there's literally different banking services called private banking, and that, yes, banks are private, but that's just what they're called, and that they start dealing with more than that because, yes, the FDIC does insure any individual account up to $250,000, which is more than I usually have to deal with. But in comparison to I think it's actually $1.9 billion now, it's laughably small. So I think you get a lot of investments, and that's when you start getting insurance on your investments so that you don't, even if something goes wrong, you can still get, several $100 million back kind of thing. So, I mean, it's almost a completely different level of thinking that I've been fascinated to study on a few times. I've done, the various stories over the years of what you should do if you win the lottery, sign the ticket, don't tell anyone, call a lawyer, all those kind of things. But even this pales in comparison with what I've reported on previously, because seriously, you start talking about billion with a B, and even the cash amounts for damn near $2 billion start being nuts.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I appreciate the information. I didn't know all that stuff, and good luck to you on the next drawing.
Thank you very much. Again, I will be very happy to receive that and make this the best damn show we can.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it there. Some other people calling out what their investments would be, including Calvin Williams will invest in copper if he wins. And Ed Clore saying over $900 million in taxes if you take the cash option. But okay, here's the thing about the cash option. I know people saying I don't want the government to take that much out of it. But here's the thing. That estimated, that number, that $1.9 billion getting thrown around is not, that money isn't sitting anywhere. There is not 1.9, let's call it $2 billion sitting around waiting to be transferred into your account, except they'll take their cut first. No, the reason they show the annuity, the lump sum option, is because that is what the winning state and the overall lottery system, they will take that amount of money and buy an annuity in your name. Now, once again, we start getting to damn near $2 billion, that starts getting a little bit complicated. Like, who the hell is going to sell you a $2 billion annuity? I mean, that starts being like, okay, what country do you want to buy? Small micronation kind of thing. So that, again, issues of scale start coming up here. But for any other amount, standardly anyway, they buy an annuity in your name. So essentially, they are investing the funds in your name, except you don't get to keep any of the extra. They just gave you exactly what's promised, and everything else they get to keep. So my perspective is, and this is not for everyone, is that just take the money and buy your own damn annuity, or invest it yourself if you think you can do better. Now, there is a reason that people would still might want to do the annuitized option, is because, well, just Google it, search it up for yourself. People's lives ruined by the lottery, which sounds paradoxical, right? Like, what? You just got all the money you're ever going to need in your life. How could this ruin your life? Oh, it can ruin your life. There's phrases such as the money controlling you, and family work coming out of the woodwork, and even violence and, frankly, murders that have been caused over stuff like this. It gets messy. So if you think that you are going to be able to handle winning the lottery, make sure, and I mean everything in your life, is in order, because you're about to have your world rocked like nothing else. There's a great line from, sticks with me in these circumstances, from the visually brilliant, if plot-wise weird movie Jupiter Ascending, of congratulations on your ascension and my deepest condolences, because nothing is ever going to be the same again. A lot of I'm just going to say investment properties or investment possibilities being brought up here. Eric von Holstein Rathlow saying, if I win, I'll tithe and my wife and I will retire, buy a Greyhound bus-sized motorhome and enjoy life. More things on inflation and a lot of different points being made there. Anyway, if you want to add your 2 cents over on the commentary, feel free to do so. Otherwise, got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls on the line. So if you're on the line, stay there. If you want to call in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso police are looking for the person responsible for shooting at a family in what police are describing as a road rage incident in West El Paso. It happened Saturday at the intersection of Mesa and Crossroads. Police say an SUV occupied by the driver's wife and an infant were shot at by a man in a white sports car after the driver of the SUV made a U-turn and cut off the sports car. Bullets hit the SUV. None of the occupants were injured. 3 teenagers died after a crash in Chaparral, New Mexico. It happened Friday morning at the intersection of Angelina and Steve Drive. Officials say that a 2007 Toyota driven by a 16-year-old was going east on Steve Drive when the Toyota failed to stop at a posted stop sign and struck a 2019 Dodge pickup truck. The driver of the Toyota and 2 passengers, a 15-year-old female and an 18-year-old male, all died at the scene. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso freeways are crash-free right now. 7-minute delays on the Gateway southbound between McCombs and Kenworthy. I-10 eastbound Trans Mountain to the Patriot, that's a 5-minute delay. On the 10 westbound at Lee Trevino, a couple of vehicles blocking the right shoulder. And slow traffic on Montana Avenue, both directions from the 54 Gateway to Global Reach. It's a 9-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We saw clouds moving in throughout the day, and it looks like we'll still have some clouds overnight to keep those temperatures just a little warmer, but the winds will remain light. Winds will be the big story for us this week as our next weather maker begins to make its presence as early as Wednesday. We will really feel it going into our Thursday with also a drop in temperatures. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by News Nation. Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 6 and 9 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
Did you guys hear the news? Great American Steakhouse has got a new location located on the west side on Sunland Park Drive. If you haven't stopped by to visit, make sure you do so for lunch, carry out, and yes, even for dinner.
11 presidents, the Pope, and dozens of world leaders have shared their thoughts about matters of faith with one person, Billy Graham. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Dropping those likes and reacts amongst the many, many other comments we got going on here, already into the triple digits there for today. Dropping those likes and reacts. Again, we do have, oh, come on, show me the dang list. It's not that hard. We do have Flaco Jimenez, Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, James Holmes, Sergio Faz, Angel Rueda, Ida Beza Gardner, Ion Graham, Alex Campos, Robert Haynes, and Richard Janessi. Again, if you appreciate our opportunity to have live local talk radio here in the borderland, well, drop a like, drop the react, share it with a friend, tell someone about it, or just chime in yourself if you can do so safely. A couple of ways you can do that. Of course, the comments coming in, including Calvin Williams with a couple of things, want to be paid for the lottery in pennies, and also saying would buy me a new jacket. What's wrong with my jacket? If you're wondering about the jacket we're talking about, is that you can see us over on the social media, on those streams we mentioned, if you are so inclined to do so, including got my ears lowered at Gentleman's Republic today. Appreciate their work for that. But the idea of getting paid in pennies, you just call it $2 billion, that would weigh more than £1 billion by my understanding. Actually, went ahead and looked this up here, because $1 billion pennies, or $1 billion worth of pennies, I should say, is about 550 million pounds. So, good luck with that option, I guess, if you really want to go with that. And Ed Clore pointing out Mattress Mac won $75 million on his Astros bet. Good luck for them there. So, I mean, we got a lot of interesting different points coming up there, and other flights, other investment opportunities. This is not investment advice. Do not take it as such. But getting back to those phone calls right now, we do have Nate on the east side here with us right now. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. I want to thank everybody for all that we do, but I mostly want to just reach out to our veterans in our local community. Just thank God for your service.
Mm-hmm.
And we came from many parts of the country, many races, but we all stood in peacetime in the war to do what was necessary to protect our country. And hats of this off. I'm kind of emotional right now with saying that, but it just touches me to say that. God bless you, and thank you each and everyone for their service.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for the note there and the thought there. You have a good one. Appreciate it. Of course, we do have Veterans Day coming up Friday, November 11th. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month is why that is determined, and why it always falls on November 11th. Remember, Veterans Day is for those who have served. Of course, Memorial Day is those who served and sacrificed, made the ultimate sacrifice. And there's also Armed Forces Day for those that are currently serving. So this is definitely, remember those in your life here, more than a couple of veterans that I've had and that I no longer, unfortunately, do. But thoughts always to them. Appreciate that. Let's go back and get to another phone call here. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Oh, hello there. Yes, I've noticed a curious pattern among conservative media, especially conservative talk radio.
Mm-hmm.
Like they generally appeal to people's ignorance on the issue of inflation and want them to vote on it, like saying like, "Oh, how are you doing now?" Like everyone knows that everyone's experiencing inflation. But people are going to associate that with people who are in office. And people in right-wing media, and Republicans in general, they're just really allowing these people to believe these false ideas for political reasons. And now these people are going to continue living the rest of their life not knowing how the strategic oil reserve works, because everyone in right-wing media is saying all these lies to get Republicans to win. Like, it's extremely troubling, this post-truth world, that those on conservative talk radio and in positions of power, they're allowing, this misinformation to go unchecked. And you do this all the time. Callers say the most outrageous things, and you don't say that they're wrong, but, you'll qualify your statement and just allow that person to keep believing something that's completely wrong.
Let me just correct you on a misconception you have here. I'm not here to force people to agree with me, or even to say, well, you have to agree with me or otherwise you're wrong here. I know that seems like a persuasive standpoint given our previous conversations here, but it's not what we're here to do. I'm trying to encourage people to know and discuss the things here, and people are going to come up with wrong conceptions here. I'm not here to correct all of them here. So let me give you an opportunity here to, if you feel that that is the wrong conception, as opposed to just saying you're wrong and bad, what would then be, from your perspective, the right way to conceive inflation?
Oh, as a product of global supply chain issues produced by COVID and corporate greed. and the war in Russia.
So we got COVID, we got corporate profits, and we've got Russia as the primary drivers of inflation by your reasoning?
Yeah, and the economists and the from credible sources.
Okay, sure. So with Russia, with the inflation we're seeing in the United States here, of course, Russia was never a huge part of the United States oil supply. It's certainly affecting parts of Europe and other places like that where they may be over a barrel. We'll see. And that has very much been a part of Russia's more or less strategic planning here. How exactly do you figure that that's figuring in here locally, particularly since a lot of the inflation trends we've seen were happening well before a year ago now, coming up on it, the Russian invasion back in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys are blaming Biden and Democrats for the inflation when there are these forces outside of their control. You all are doing that and allowing people to live life with this flawed understanding of the economy.
Let me just say that any argument that begins with you all or you people is often going to have a bit of issues here, because what we're trying to do here is talk about the local issues. So if you're going to be trying to essentially talk over our head saying, well, that's what these people are saying, I'm not saying that. I make very specific arguments the way I do whenever we are talking about that things, and then we want to get people's perspectives here. So let's bring it back down locally here. I've had the contention that the El Paso economy is having ups and downs. I mean, there are some good indicators, there are some bad indicators, among other things. Some of the things that, like with the interview today that we're delving into, looking at essentially a dearth of demand. That's somewhat in contravention of what some national expectations had been, with the idea that even if inflation and prices, therefore looking at, and also assuming that people are coming from a place of ignorance is a bad standpoint on here, because of course the inflation is based on that market basket of goods. The consumer price index is another way that it is marked there. Looking at that, still continuing to see on above normal range. I mean, inflation is pretty much omnipresent, but given the fact that we're still looking at elevated rates and people still paying more and those kind of things, I guess very least locally, there's kind of a mixed bag, because we are seeing both more developments. I mean, I was driving out Loop 375, Joe Battle Way recently over the weekend, actually, and saw that there's a huge new warehouse coming on. So El Paso may be riding the wave, but still there are a lot of people, particularly, I mean, like there's fixed incomes, things like that, that are going to end up being struggling with that. So I guess, are you really saying that this is fine and you should be just weathering it?
Absolutely not. My issue is conservatives jumping on this situation, the inflation problem, and attributing it to push their agenda. Like, for example, in the very beginning, you guys were, right-wing media was attributing the inflation to Biden's government spending and government programs. Right-wing media was literally saying that the more money people have, the more everything's going to be more expensive. Like, you can imagine the consequences of that idea down the road. It's to cause people to oppose government spending and government programs no matter what, with the idea that everyone's prices are going to go up if that happens. And it's not black and white like that. It's case by case.
I'm very excited to hear you say that things aren't black and white like that, because the idea that anyone coming up with reasoning along those lines saying that, well, I don't oppose this, therefore they're bad or wrong, as we've often come up with here, is an interesting one. Let's just put it that way for right now, because there are many other reasons and standpoints people may come with it. The most common reasoning I've seen about the idea that government spending is a contributor for inflation, when it is traditionally somewhat of a bulwark against, well, economic downturns, I should say, that if the economy is finding itself faltering, it can often, more government spending can stand in to keep it propped up, to not see a cliff being fallen off of. But more specifically, the idea that increasing the money supply is where it's starting to come at from this standpoint. Because more specifically, the idea of there being more money out there, I'm not saying that they are monetizing the debt or essentially running the printing press. I know some out there are saying that, but we've seen that previously in, say, a revolutionary era France, when someone new coming into power would gain control of the money printing press and say, well, we need to spend $1,000 on this, just print that money. And, or say Weimar Republic Germany, where they had that you had to have, literal cartloads of dollars to be able to buy bread, that kind of thing, or more modernly Zimbabwe. Still want one of those framed in my office, but those have gotten surprisingly expensive, believe it or not. Anyway, point is that there are some criticisms of that here. So, I mean, I'm sure that your standpoint isn't that there can be no valid criticism of this, even though you have definitely and previously said something along the lines of there can be that if you're opposing all government spending, you're wanting people to die.
Well, if you blindly oppose new government programs without even looking about how it's going to impact people's quality of life, suffering, or their deaths, then yes, that's the type of irrationality that's being pushed with these false narratives by right-wing media. Like again, the main causes aren't government programs and spending. It's corporate greed, global supply chains, and the war in Russia. And conservative media is using this opportunity to misinform, to push their ideology, to get people to dogmatically oppose government programs.
I mean, I don't think there's a dogmatic thing. I mean, at least look at the way the patterns of government work. Whenever a party is in power, they tend to like their own spending. Whenever a party is out of power, they tend to oppose the spending of the other party that is in power. But I guess the idea that there can be no reason to oppose these things just isn't right. And let me just give you this bit of advice before we end up moving on here to the next caller, is that sure, razzing on the things you don't like may feel cathartic. If you're actually wanting people to like listen and understand and maybe discuss the ideas with you, perhaps consider proposing what you actually do want to see, what you would propose. Otherwise, it's very easy to throw rocks. And yes, I realize the irony of my position is that I primarily discuss things because, again, the idea of elected office and actually having to deal with that is one of those kind of cold sweat moments for me. Not ruling it out entirely ever, but definitely not at this point in time. But let's just say actually proposing what you like and what you would see as opposed to just saying everything else is bad, maybe not be the best argumentative point for you there. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Let's get to at least one more call on the line here. We do have Frankie and Maciel with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. First, right out of the box, I'm suffering from this horrible, stupid static again, and I can hardly hear what. Well, I'm hearing you on the phone. Thank you so much. But on the radio, I can't hear squat. But let me say this. You wanted a comparative equivalency of how much $1 billion in pennies would be? I'll give you one.
Mm-hmm.
It would be less than that fat derriere of the Donny Dotard doofus. That's number one. If you want to use that, stick that one over there. But let me just say something. Seriously, is a heart attack here from Messia. I'm telling you, everybody out there in Southwest Florida region, right? If you are a miserable person, 14 different ways to Sunday, and you got $1 billion or $10 trillion, I don't care. You will just be a very rich, miserable person. So keep that in the back of your mind on that. So that's basically all I had to say, because I couldn't hear anything you said on your radio because that stupid static. But anyway, have a good day.
You too as well. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there as well.
All right.
I guess I have heard it said that the lottery doesn't solve any of your problems or really change who you are necessarily. It amplifies what you already were. So if you're an awful person, you're going to be a high-powered awful person. If you're a good person, might be a high-powered good person, but it often ends up underlying what you already are. So more comments coming in there, but tell you what, we got to take that last break of the hour right now. Coming out of this break, we got coming up for you further preview of election night, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Fire is responding to an injury accident Gateway East at North Yarborough exit. On the 54 Patriot southbound between McCombs and Kenworthy, it's stop and go with a 5-minute delay. Slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound, Trans Mountain over to the 54 Patriot. That's a 5-minute delay. And on Border Highway, the northbound exit ramp at Pan American is closed for the next several weeks. Use Zaragoza exit instead. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Halloween is over, but hiring is still scary. Indeed's end-to-end solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and instantly receive a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Get ready for the smartest bundle in streaming. 6 streaming services for the intellectually curious, featuring Curiosity Stream with the best collection of documentary films and TV shows, Psalm TV, and great stories from the world of wine. Tastemade for the fun side of food and travel. Topic with the best thrillers and crime stories, and so much more. From nature to history, technology to food, mystery to adventure. Get 6 streaming services for one low price at less than $6 a month. It's the best deal in streaming. Learn more and sign up now at smartbundle.com.
When it comes to our judges, experience and qualifications matter. Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals graduated in the top 10% of his law school class. He practiced law for 29 years before coming to the Court of Appeals, where he has been for the last 8 years. The only candidate in this race who is board certified in civil appellate law. A principled conservative who fairly applies the law as written. We need to keep Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals.
Political ad paid for by Justice Jeff Alley in accordance with the voluntary limits of the Judicial Campaign Fairness Act.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter code TRIAL at checkout. That's harrys.com, code TRIAL. Enjoy.
Stuff the Truck. Saturday, November 12th at Barnett Harley-Davidson. The El Paso Association of Radio Stations invites you to stuff the Salvation Army truck.
Over $5,000 in prizes.
Free holiday turkeys to the first 400 donors.
Donate unused furniture, appliances, dryers, washers, fridges, gently used clothing. Saturday, November 12th, 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. at Barnett Harley-Davidson.
One raffle ticket for 20 pounds up to 200 pounds. One turkey per family per car. Minimum 20-pound donation. Broken or damaged goods will be declined.
Learn more at barnettharley.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host. I want to thank each and every one of you that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show in some way. We aren't able to get to all the calls. A couple of drop-offs there. So if you're ever on the line, just stay there and we'll get to you. But, of course, we'll be doing it again tomorrow. So, again, coverage plan for tomorrow. 4 to 6 p.m., the regular show, the call-in show for the week. So if you want to get on the line and add your 2 cents about all these elections and other things, including a Powerball, whatever, tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. We're going to take a quick break after that, and then we'll be back 7 to 9 with your live local election night coverage, including the local results, keeping an eye on some of those national races, graphics, the whole 9 yards. We're joined here in studio by Todd Curry, UTEP professor of political science, and Robbie Gray, editor of El Pasoing, to help me keep an eye on those things and discuss the implications. So we'll have to leave it there for us today because we are super out of time. Again, thank everyone who did participate in the show in any way. Make sure you go out to vote tomorrow. I will fight you if you were, well, I'll fight you verbally. Let's put it that way. And we'll have to leave it there for today. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, all. And go vote tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Fire is responding to an injury accident Gateway East at North Yarborough exit. On the 54 Patriot southbound between McCombs and Kenworthy, it's stop and go with a 5-minute delay. Slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound, Trans Mountain over to the 54 Patriot. That's a 5-minute delay. And on Border Highway, the northbound exit ramp at Pan American is closed for the next several weeks. Use Zaragoza exit instead. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
A lot of things have changed with the real estate market this year. Hi, it's Glenn. But with Brian Birds of eXp Realty, you don't have to worry about whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, because Brian's exclusive options and unique strategies make the market work for you, whatever's going on. Brian spends 25 times more on marketing than most agents make in a year. That means he's going to get your home sold faster and for more money, because the potential buyers will see your home. And that is what creates demand. which gets you faster result and top dollar. In fact, he guarantees to sell it or he'll buy it himself. Another great option you need to sell quickly is Brian's instant cash offer. No showings, open houses, no hassle, just money in your pocket. Brian Birds is the agent that I would trust in El Paso. Besides that, well over 400 people have given Brian a 5-star Google review. You can read them by Googling Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S, or check out brianbirds.com.
Portions of the following program will be recorded.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC